Hey everybody, welcome to Storytime with John and Friends. I'm your host, John. Today we have another great episode for you. My friend Mike Tomasulo stopped by. You may remember Mike from playing drums in the band Kill the Clock, and currently he's playing with Eternal Boy. Mike stopped by to hang out, share some stories, and it was a lot of fun. It was great to catch up, great to see him. He's got a lot going on. As you'll hear in the episode, he actually was about to leave for tour managing a band on the Youngblood tour, as well as some more stuff in the future, which is pretty crazy. He's got a pretty hectic schedule coming up. So make sure you give the episode a full listen, like and subscribe. I actually wanted to go ahead and thank everybody for listening to each episode. We have reached the 1 year mark. I've been doing this for over a year now, so that means a lot. It's pretty cool that I had this vision to do this, and it's come to fruition, and people are giving it a listen, and they seem to enjoy it. So thanks again. Like and subscribe. StouryTime Pod across all platforms. Anything going on with Mike will be down in the description below. And enjoy the episode.
You were pissing neon green every day.
That big ball of heat in the sky was too much. I thought there was a bear.
Reality goes, yeah, fresco. That's what I'm saying.
Hey, everybody.
What's up, everybody?
Welcome to
Welcome to
Storytime.
Storytime.
When do you leave again?
So I gotta pull up my calendar. This is constantly. I feel like I'm never home. So I am leaving in 3 days on Sunday the 25th.
Oh.
I have been home for like 3 weeks right now, but in that time I play in a band from Pittsburgh called Eternal Boy. So I'm like every week I'm going down there and practicing. So it's like 3.5 hours there, 3.5 hours back. And so I went down to record or write a record like 2 weeks ago. And then last week we went to New Jersey to record that record with Chris Badami in New Jersey. So like I've just really never been home between tours. But yeah, so I'm going out with The Regrets, who's direct support for Youngblood.
Okay, that's sick.
Yeah, it's going to be the biggest tour I've ever done.
Yeah.
Super excited. Just absolutely crazy. I mean, we're going to be on a bandwagon. I'm sure Youngblood has like 20 buses. I don't know. That's probably exaggerated.
Is he that big?
I have no idea. I wouldn't be surprised if like he had his own bus and then like Crew had another bus type of vibe.
Yeah. I would get that vibe.
I'll tell you in 4 days or whatever.
Yeah. Definitely let me know.
Super sick. But yeah, so I very stoked. It's the first time I've ever been hired for a band where I didn't really know anyone before that. I met their bassist on a tour I did in December. She was the bassist of a support band for that tour. And we just got to talking at a bar one day. I was like, oh, so like who else do you play with? And she's like, oh, I'm the bassist of The Regrets. Her name is Brooke. And so Brooke was like, yeah, well, we're looking for a tour manager right now. We just kind of like ended a relationship with our last tour manager and we're looking for somebody. So I gave her my number. I was like, hey, give me a call if this ever amounts to anything.
Right.
And literally like a month later, I got a call and like a Zoom invite with their whole team. Super cool, and just hit it running. And it's a weird thing for me, kind of like going into it. It's not exactly my scene of stuff. I like we come from like punk heavier bands or whatever. So interesting. I guess it's kind of, I would consider it like a pop tour. Like I don't know, whatever Youngblood is, whatever you consider that to be. I don't know if you listen to him.
I've like seen clips and stuff of the like his social media, so I'm familiar, but I couldn't tell you what any of his music sounds like.
I first heard of him. He did a song with Travis Barker and Machine Gun Kelly.
I think that's the first time I heard of him too.
A couple years ago, and I was like, this is kind of sick. Like he gave me such like Bert from the Used vibes. Like great like raspy voices. Like this is kind of sick. But then I've listened to a few other songs. And it's much poppier than whatever that was. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'll tell you how that goes.
Dude, I bet you that's gonna be sick though. I feel like those are going to be wild.
Crazy. Biggest shows I've ever done. I think most of the venues are anywhere from like 3,000 to 5,000 caps. Like a lot of them are like indoor outdoor things too. So like comparable to like Art Park. I think
that's awesome.
This is going to be like the 10th tour in a row I've done that doesn't have a Buffalo date for me. So no home shows, and it's always like oh, we'll be crossing back through Canada. I'm like, okay, I get to be home for like 5 seconds and grab like a different pair of shoes or something. But Yeah, super excited.
That's awesome. How long is this one?
Great question. I leave on the 25th, and the last day is in Iowa on August 4th. So I will hopefully be back by like the 5th or 6th of August.
Nice. By the time you get back, I will have a baby.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. That's.
I mean, congrats to you. I mean,
Thank
that's
you.
absolutely
I'm excited.
insane. Dude, time is crazy.
Time is horrifying
Yeah.
at the same time, but that's very exciting, man. That's sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Dude.
This last tour you were just on, you were playing with Eternal Boy, right?
Yeah. So I play in Eternal Boy now, which is great friends of mine, Rishi and Joe. I've known them since I was touring in Kill the Clock.
Okay.
It had to have been like 2017. We were playing a show in Stroudsburg, PA at the Sherman Showcase. And I was like packing up drums outside, and like the other guys in Kill the Clock came and got me. They were like, "Yo, you got to check out this band that's on right now." So I come in and I watched Eternal Boy for the first time, and they sound like a modern, like I would say Blink-182, like 3-piece pop punk band. But the songs rip, and I was obsessed from that point forward. So became friends with them. So this is since 2017. So for a couple years, like we were doing show swaps. We were putting them on our shows in Buffalo, and the singer of Eternal Boy, Rishi, runs Four Chord Music Festival in Pittsburgh. So I started working for that festival a couple years ago. And then just last year, they parted ways with their drummer, their most recent drummer. And I hit him up. I was like, yo, like, I know all the songs. Like, I can just fill in for you. Like, let me know what you think here. And they were like, oh, you're too busy. You tour too much. Like, you're not going to have time to do, like, this band. I was like, but I would. Like, I like your band a lot.
Yeah.
So the first show I played with them was Four Chord Music Fest last year. And it's been sick since then. We've been doing shows with like a lot of like classic bands, like bands we grew up on. We did some shows with Alistair. If you remember that, Drive Through Records, Alistair. We did some dates with Mest.
Nice.
Love Mest.
Did you know that Jeff Sum played with them for a while?
Really?
Yeah, from Cute.
Playing guitar?
Yeah, he played guitar with them for
the
like
hell out of
I
here.
think 1 or 2 tours. Yeah,
That's crazy.
A couple years ago.
Their Mest drummer, current drummer, he's from Rochester, so it's kind of weird. Cool Buffalo connection, or Western New York connection. Who else do we play with? We just did a tour with Unwritten Law and Authority Zero.
Oh, that's sick.
It was so crazy. We were so
Legends.
stoked, like legends,
Legends.
right? It's so funny. Aiden Licker and John Greenan came to that date. We were at Gramercy Theater in New York City, and Aiden came up to me, and he was like, "Dude, who's Unwritten Law?" And I was like, "Come on." Wow. So from Josie, she likes you, LNDHC.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the UL of Josie, and like his mind just exploded.
Wow.
So good.
That's funny.
But yeah, it's crazy. All these bands that like we grew up listening to. Eternal Boy doesn't tour a lot, but we'll do some weekend runs, and that Unwritten Law tour was like a week. Super cool. Very interesting tour. So much I'm not even legally allowed to say right now, but very interesting. Shout out Scott Russo. Shout out Unwritten Law.
Awesome.
So yeah, dude, super sick. So that's what's going on with Eternal Boy. We just finished a record, and yeah, possibly touring UK in the fall. Had a couple offers kind of on the table right now, but it's also tough with my schedule. So like I tour so much where I'm like, okay, do I tour and make money, or do I tour in the band that I play in for like a good time?
Right.
So
That's the question.
it's very, very tough for me to decide sometimes.
Yeah,
of, like
don't blame
keeping
you.
balance. But the last couple things I've done with Eternal Boy, I've had to leave in the middle of a tour that I'm like hired to work for. Like if it's just like a 3-day weekend thing, I'll tell that band and their management like, hey, I got to dip out for 3 days. Like, we good? Like I'll find a cover for myself or whatever, which is it's happening next week or 2 weeks from now. So on this Youngblood tour, we play Toronto on the 4th of July, and then I come home on the 5th. I'm sending the band to their next shows like in Milwaukee, I think. So I'm going to be home, and then I'm going to go right to Pittsburgh to have a practice on the 5th, and then I play with Eternal Boy July 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Okay.
And then come back right to the Youngblood tour again. So I've been doing that a lot.
You said you went there to write a record with
Yeah.
them. So did they just already have the songs and they just needed the drums?
Yeah, so they had demos really pretty much there. I would say it was like a solid 90%. None of us have really written music this way. Backing up for a second, one of my least favorite parts of like being in a band is the writing and recording of music.
My favorite part.
So I get into this with people all the time,
Yeah.
and that's how they feel too. They love writing music. For me, it's why I do what I do. Is I love the live show. I love touring. I don't give a shit about writing music.
Okay.
But like I do, but it's just so stressful to me.
So that's perfect for you as far as being like a hired gun.
100%.
Yeah.
So like I tell people all the time, like my dream job or my career retirement job is to play in a cover band for the rest of my life.
Right.
That is so easy. That is playing somebody else's songs. It's there. You just got to play it as perfect as you can. And that's it. And then they pay you money to play other people's songs.
Right.
But as far as like writing songs go, I struggled with this in Kill the Clock too. But if you like bring something to the table, like if you guys bring me a song, like I can listen to it and be like, okay, let's change that. And so it was a lot of that for this record that we just did. They had, I think it was like 8 or 9 demos. And like, I don't know, I learned exactly how they had it. And like, as we were revising the songs, I would change stuff.
Right.
And then, so 3 days, 3 10-hour practice days for basically writing this record and putting it together. And then the following week, I did like 4 days of drum tracking to get it done. So
you basically were you playing to that shit at home, like the demos?
Yeah,
and
pretty
stuff?
much. Yeah.
So you basically had everything written. You just had to like finalize it together.
Exactly. Which is still one of my least favorite parts of anything. So when I joined the
That's
band,
so
it's like
funny,
they had 3 records of songs. It's like, this is so easy. All I have to do is
Yeah.
learn this band's songs.
It's already written for you.
It's already written for me.
Yeah.
It's like I'm playing in a cover band. I'm playing in an Eternal Boy cover band. But yeah, so now it's a super different experience. Like it is cool now that it's done. Like I feel like I have my hand in some songs. Like okay, those are partially.
You're an official member.
I'm
now.
official member.
Yeah.
Those are partially my songs.
Yeah.
Like it'll be cool. Very excited for it. No idea when it's going to be done or coming out, but sometime this year.
Very
hopefully.
cool. Yeah, so I reached out to you to see if you wanted to come on a while ago. Honestly, I don't remember.
It's been a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you were on tour and you were just like, yeah, whenever I'm in town, we'll make it happen. You reminded me. I forgot.
Did you?
Yeah, because I'm always looking for more people, So when you were like, hey man, I'm back in town this date, I was like, that's right. Because I have in my phone, I have a list of like 40, 50 people that are all like, yes, let's do it. I'm like, all right, you're on the list. It's going to be a thing, when we make it happen or when we can make it happen, we'll make it happen. Yeah. Especially because in person is way better in my opinion than Zoom. Zoom is great. It makes it way more possible for people that like aren't here.
Yeah.
That won't be here, that don't tour anymore or just won't be here anytime soon. So, but that's why I wanted to make sure this one was in person.
For sure. Well, I appreciate you having me, man.
Absolutely.
It's crazy going back through like your roster of people that have been on the podcast. It's like, man, so many like friends and homies from this area that like have done the thing over the years.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
It's also crazy to think of like, they're not just like nobodies either. Like,
right.
Cutest is what we aim for. Tom, like Del Paxton, fucking amazing band. All these bands they're all amazing, and like some of them have done huge things.
At least at one point,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Like I mean, everyone's got their stories. It's so cool.
Yeah. So, which leads me to your story.
Sure.
When and what made you decide that? All right, I'm quitting my day job, doing this full time. Like, where was your headspace in that?
So it was something that I've always wanted to do. So always, but maybe not. So I went to Fredonia. I studied music business, and like I got a minor in communication. But it's like, what do you do with that? Like I went into college. I was like, I don't know what I really want to do. At that point, I wasn't even playing in a band. Like I started playing in Kill the Clock while I was at Fredonia. And then we started DIY touring like, anybody does. And I didn't realize that in Kill the Clock, besides just drumming, like I was also like the acting tour manager. Like I was pretty much advancing the shows and had all like touring elements kind of going through my head. Like I was figuring out that this was a job without knowing what a tour manager was at the point. And then we ended the band, but like in the last 6 months, we literally played the Traditionals farewell show.
Our farewell show.
The farewell show. And then like either it was like the day before or the day after that, I got my first offer to do a tour with this band Waster from the UK.
Okay. Yeah.
My other friend was like their previous tour manager, and like he moved on to a different band and was like, hey man, like this is an opportunity. It doesn't pay well, but like, would you want to do it? And I was like, hell yeah, I'm in. At this point, I was still working I was in a wedding production company for the last like 9 years of my life. CJ Sound, yes.
Yes. So my wedding, you guys did it.
Did we?
Yes, and it was great, but I did have to have a talking with the DJ.
Did you?
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
He did. Oh, it was whatever. It wasn't a big deal. But I was like, at one point, I was like, hey, man, can you just like play anything off our list? And he was like, well, your songs are all like punk songs. I was like, that's
what
who's
I want.
here. That's who's here.
These are my people.
Yeah. And then he changed it, and it was a blast. But
you'll have to tell me after this off camera who your DJ was. So
I couldn't tell you. I have no idea who it was.
But fair enough. I remember actually that triggered a memory. I remember seeing you at a bridal show one time I was working.
At Pearl Street. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't even know that you worked for them until that show. And then you were like, yo, I saw you there. And I was like, I thought that was you, but I wasn't sure. So
funny. But okay, so back to it. I was at CJ Sound for years, and like they were super cool with me. They knew that I was doing the band thing and touring, and for a while they were like, yeah, you can leave and come back. And I did that for a year or two. But then I started kind of like moving up the ranks at that company, and they were like, okay, so you can't like just leave all the time. And so this is an issue. Like you need fill-in people to work weddings and whatever. Right. And at this point, I was so over the wedding thing. I'm still kind of over wedding production, but there's so much money to be made in that.
Oh, for sure.
So at one point, like I had to talk with the boss. I was like, yo, okay, I'm leaving. And this is now in fall of 2019. I had that first tour with Waster. It was great. Loved it. But in between the tours, I didn't have enough gigs booked. So I kind of was still going back and taking some gigs in wedding production. Mm-hmm. And then I did another tour with Waster in like, I think it was like January, February of 2020, right before COVID hit. And I was like, okay, cool. I've officially quit the company at this point. Like I'm not doing anything for weddings, and I'm now filling my schedule. I had a full schedule up until like October of 2020, and then COVID hit. So everything went away. I'm not doing anything. Like I started filling out applications to work for tours, as a crew person. It all went away. I went back to that company again during COVID because we were doing like socially distant birthday parties, and that's the only way I can make money.
That sucks.
So COVID kind of like wrapped up. I had like this small stint where I moved to New Hampshire for a second during COVID, and then I moved back sort of at the tail end of COVID in like 2021. Came back, worked at CJ Sound again for 9 months, made some money. It was cool. But then I was like, hey, I really need to like try to do this for myself. Like I always at this point, I'm now like, okay, I want to tour. So I can't do weddings anymore. I'm just going to go into the deep end. And then luckily my schedule started filling up really well. So my first, I consider like when I became full-time touring had to have been February of 2022 at this point. So this is last year.
Yeah.
Year and a half ago, and since then I have been booked nonstop. I have like a nice open 3-month gap, January to March of this year. But a gap is nice to be at home and like relax and not do anything until you hit the bank account. And you're like, oh my god, there's not enough dollars there. So that's kind of what I've been doing right now. And that's sort of how I got into it, and like the flow of things. It was like I need to leave the really good salary job to just go into the deep end. And it's so stressful. It's like, sure, you can make good money touring, but not knowing how far out you're going to be booked or like what the next gig is going to be.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know, kind of just going with the flow and just assuming that stuff will happen or like hoping for the best. But
that's awesome though.
Yeah,
that's great. I would have like, that is, you're living the dream as far as like, you may not be playing as much.
Yeah.
But you're still literally doing what you wanted to do. You're working with music, you're working with musicians.
Exactly.
You are still playing, and you're networking and making those connections with people to like basically further your career, which is
100%.
awesome.
That's kind of all it ever was. And it was, so I guess the other factor of that was like after Kill the Clock ended, I really stepped away from drumming. I was like, I don't want to play anymore. And the only thing I was doing is I played in a Blink cover band. I don't know if you ever went to one of those
we
shows.
went to
Rec Room.
No, we went to the one at the beach, Woodlawn.
The beach. Oh,
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
it's so funny. So, me, Dan McCormick, and Aiden Licker, Lacking in the Bulge is our Blink tribute band. And I think we've played 4 shows. But, like, that's all I wanted to do. I was like, I'm really done drumming. I just want to play in a cover band and play somebody else's songs. And I was super content with that. I was like, I'm done playing. I basically started selling off some of my stuff. And I was like, I just want to work as like a tour manager, merch manager, or like even driver. I've done a couple gigs like driving bandwagon, which is not as bad as you would think. And
do you need your CDL for that?
you don't, which is the most insane thing ever. It's basically the equivalent of driving the largest U-Haul box truck that you can get
Without needing a special license.
without needing a special license, even though you totally should. There's like 10 people in the back. It weighs 26,000 pounds. You could definitely kill somebody.
Oh, for
very
sure.
easily.
I mean, you could have killed anybody in a touring van,
Of course,
too,
of course. But so I mean, it was a good time. Glad to have said I did that at least. I did it 2 times, but glad to have said I got the chance to do it once.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So, what was your first UK tour? Who was that with?
So this was another full circle moment. It was actually with the band Waster, that first band that I was talking about. So the whole chronological story, when you piece it together, it sounds really cool. Like when I was at Fredonia, I remember Dan from Kill the Clock, Dan McCormick, showed me Waster, or somebody in our friend group. Like that's all we listened to. That the like mid 2010s pop punk sound that was super popular. So Waster came out in like 2015. He's like, yo, check this out. It's super sick. I was like, yeah, man, this band is cool. And then I met them on their first tour in 2018. They stayed at my house for a couple days. Then I became their tour manager, merch manager. And then they've gone through a bunch of different drummers, but I don't know exactly what happened, but they were on a headline UK tour. It was like a 3-week UK tour playing lots of B and C markets, and their drummer got sick or something. And so they posted on Instagram like, hey, we got to cancel tomorrow's show while we figure out like a new drummer situation. And I very jokingly messaged their bassist, and I was like, hey man, like you need me to fly over there and fill in or something? Like I would always, I mean, like I know all the songs, like I've done so many shows with them. And he was like, are you serious? Like, how soon can you be here? And I was like, well, I just got home from a tour 2 days ago, so give me like a couple days. He's like, could you be here in 24 hours? So I just finished doing laundry, and I put away all my clothes from my last 6-week tour. And as soon as they were back in like the dressers or whatever, I was packing another bag. Girlfriend wanted to kill me. Yeah, it was a great time though. So I went over there. Had a red-eye flight, landed at like 7 a.m. They picked me up from the airport. We went right to the rehearsal space, practiced for 10 hours. Their set list was like an hour 15 long. It was a headliner. So there was a few songs that they'd put out that I wasn't familiar with. Like that was obviously the hardest part for me. Again, the cover band thing. Right. I know all the songs. Like this is easy. I'm playing along to somebody else's stuff. But a song that came out like last week, I was like, I really don't know this. It was cool. We did 1 day of practice, and then the next day we did, I think it was like 9 shows straight, 9 or 10 shows. Super cool. First experience being over there. We were in a van. We did hotels pretty much every night. Super cool. Just wow. Just what an experience. Like I lost 10 pounds in my like week of being there. The food is so much different than the States.
Oh, yeah.
Like have you done the UK?
I haven't done UK, but I did Italy for our honeymoon, and it was like, first of all, you walk everywhere. Yeah. It's just like mostly walking, but they don't put all the preservatives and shit in the food.
Right. I can taste it being healthier.
Yeah, like even you will like look at it and you're like, this looks nothing like pasta from America, and it's I mean, so we were still touring like a DIY van band, right? So like we were stopping at service exits, and they were like, you got to try every fast food here. So like that's kind of like what I was eating. Like we were just eating at service exits all the time. Like try the KFC, try like the McDonald's, the Burger King was healthier. The KFC chicken was like not disgusting. It was kind of cool. But yeah, came back and I put myself on the scale. I lost 10 pounds of just like eating healthy. Yeah, super weird. Wow.
Yeah, good time. But
so real quick on the KFC thing, I actually heard a thing today. I don't know how true this is, but I I was listening to something and they were talking about KFC chicken is like supposedly one of the healthiest like fried chickens you could ever get because the meat that they make is like the cleanest it could ever be.
I don't know if I believe that.
I mean, I don't know how true that is.
Okay.
I didn't look into it.
Okay.
I was listening and I heard it and I was like, huh, that's interesting. Fried chicken is not good for you. That's not what they were saying. What they were saying is as far as like the GMOs and everything else, like it is the cleanest, most clean, like the closest to organic.
Okay.
Because as far as like organic goes, they've done testing and it's just like the same as non.
So that's for KFC chicken like in the US?
Yeah.
That's crazy because in that case then like if the US chicken is healthy then like the UK chicken must have been like
let me rephrase that. In comparison to other chicken, it's the healthiest chicken.
Okay. Sure.
Over there, I don't know. I'm sure it's way healthier.
This sounds like one of those like memes where it's like, oh, new study comes out that says dogs need to be eating more treats every day, and then people are like, was this written by a dog? Like this just in, KFC chicken is super healthy. Like says who? The CEO of KFC?
Milkbone, or
right. Wow. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, like that, the whole thing was crazy. I mean, like the food is one thing, but like you know, there to play shows. Some of the craziest shows in my life. I know you're gonna ask me this, but it's between two shows. It's either a show that I played in London on this tour. It felt so good. Of favorite show of all time. Am I jumping the gun?
No, you're fine.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go into it. So the second last show of this tour was in London. Packed, sold out. Couldn't tell you where it was. I have to look it up what the name was, but it was like the super old, rundown looking building. Probably held like 400 people here. Most insane crowd surfing, stage diving, but the lighting of this show, they had two giant like lights from a train. Basically, this is the only way I could describe this. Like super bright, giant things. Yeah. One on either side of the drum kit, and the LD was like blasting these as like strobes the whole time. So the lights are super hot and I'm playing and I can't see anything. There's so much haze, super tiny stage, but like a giant room. Definitely the most fun I ever had. The support band drummer for this band, Misplaced, he came up on the last song and like I jumped out into the crowd and like stage dove with the singer. It was a great time. But
so in the UK, you said they're from the UK, right?
Yeah, the band's based there.
Do kids like just show out for all those shows? Because you know whenever I've talked to people that have from America that they've gone overseas, they always say like those shows are always crazy because they don't know if they'll ever see you again, 100%. And they don't know if you could be the next fucking Rolling Stones. Yeah. They don't know, so a lot of times they'll just come out just to say, okay, I saw that band before they. 100%. Never came back.
I don't know if that was the same necessarily situation for this tour since they're UK based. I think that's more of a thing for like US or like Australian bands
because they may not have the opportunity.
They may never be back there, right? Yeah. But like Waster is like a relatively popular band in the UK, and like I think it was like a comeback tour for them. Like they took some time off during COVID, like anybody.
Yeah.
But like people definitely still came out. But we were playing some weird markets on this tour. I don't know who booked this, but we played a place called Tunbridge Wells, and there wasn't that many people that showed out. But the venue was like this 16 or 1700s. It used to be a public toilet.
Okay.
And now it's a venue bar thing.
Okay.
But yeah, we're just set up like in a toilet. I was like, this is insane, but it's super weird. Like it was like super southern point of the UK. Definitely one of the strangest venues I think I've ever played.
Okay.
It was a good time overall though. Would I do it again? Yes. The driving on the wrong side of the road thing like freaked me out. I can drive for days. Like I'll be the driver for any band at any time and I can drive for hours, but there was something about, I didn't have to drive thankfully, but like the steering wheel being on, the American passenger side or whatever, and then driving on the wrong side of the road, it fucked with my head so hard. Like I just stayed, we were in a van. So it was like the two front seats and then, a bench seat facing the back of the van and another bench seat. So pretty much the whole time I was facing the back of the van because I just couldn't look out the windshield.
Couldn't do it.
It was just
a mind
I
fuck.
felt so sick when driving. That never happens to me.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I feel like that's a drummer thing as far as the driving thing goes because
Really?
in the traditional I was the main driver.
Really?
Yeah. I don't like having other people in charge of my
so
life.
stressful.
I hate that.
Yeah.
Like if I wasn't driving, I was more than likely on the loft sleeping, because if I'm gonna die,
You guys had a loft, like one bunk?
yeah, I built a loft, and then we had in every van we built a loft, except for maybe the last one.
Yeah.
The last one we didn't. I don't think. No, we did. But so basically, we had like on our last van. We had 2 rows, and then I built a loft, and we had all our gear under it. So if I wasn't driving, I was sleeping or trying to sleep, because if I'm gonna die, I'd rather be comfortable.
Comfy in bed.
No idea it's coming. I don't know.
100%. I always thought the same thing. I think for KTC, it was the same thing. I own the van, so it was my personal thing.
It's in my name as well.
Yeah. And I was on my parents' insurance, and they were like, yeah, so like, don't have anyone else drive because they're not covered, which I don't know if that's true or not, or like how that actually works. But I had John Vaughn, who's also been on this. He was the only one. Shout out John Vaughn. He was the only one that drove, and it was maybe like 3 times ever. Like if we had a super long drive, I would tap out, and John would drive for like 2 hours just for me to get a nap in. But like I was never comfortable with anybody ever driving.
I hated it too.
Yeah.
Especially like, I'm calling you out, Mush. I'm calling you out, Mike. They're terrible drivers of a fucking 15-passenger van. And you know what? That's fine. It's not an easy thing for everybody because it is a big thing, and you have to like compensate for the back, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas when you're driving a little coupe,
Right.
you don't have to worry about that.
You don't even think
shit.
about it.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. And especially when you're pulling a trailer.
Yep.
Like that full US we did with Fortune and Fame, there were 9 guys in one van. We pulled a 10 or 12-foot trailer, and I drove a good portion of that tour, but at a certain point, I was like, fuck this, I'm not doing it anymore, because that van was such a piece of shit, which is a whole, we've heard it 100 times.
Of course.
That van fucking sucked. But like when we would drive through New York City, no matter what the tour was, I was the designated driver for New York City, because if I parallel parked the van with a 10-foot trailer.
Yeah.
You know, and nobody else could have done that.
Of course.
Because they weren't confident enough to do that. I wasn't either, but I figured it out.
I could not relate harder. One of the most insane things about my most recent touring is I've been like in RV or a bandwagon, basically my last bunch of tours, huge vehicles with trailers. 2 of those times I was driving the bandwagon, but I have gotten into New York City and parked those vehicles and have not gotten a ticket on any vehicle. I've left like our generators running right next to a sign that says like no idling, $3,000 fine.
Yeah.
And so the whole time I'm like constantly going outside checking like, oh shit, did we get a ticket? Like haven't gotten like knock on wood. I have not ever gotten a parking ticket in New York City, and I park unbelievably illegally.
Yeah. See, I've never parked illegally. We would literally drive. Well, that's not true. We parked illegally once, but it was in front of our friend, Matt. He was the drummer of Candy Hearts.
Yeah.
He let us park in front of his driveway because they didn't have to go anywhere until whatever. And we were staying at another friend's house like a few blocks away. So we drove around for an hour. Finally got a hold of somebody who got a hold of him, who was like, hey, can they park in front of your driveway? He said, yeah, screw it. But he said, no problem, as long as it's gone by a certain time.
Right.
Park it. And then we had to walk 10 blocks back to where we were staying.
Well, you got a parking spot.
We had that's all that mattered.
Yeah.
Because how are you finding a parking spot anywhere in New York City, let alone a 12, 15-passenger van with a fucking trailer?
It's the worst. I just don't get it. It's a pet peeve of mine for not only New York City, but I mean, I guess if we're talking about shows and venues, how do you have a venue? I don't care if you're in the major cities. How do you have a venue and not have at least one designated spot for your bands?
Yeah.
There's like, I can get it. Like, okay, you don't have green rooms. Okay, fine. Like, is it the end of the world?
You don't need one at a punk show or whatever. They're great if you got them, but
right. But parking and then bathroom or like venues that have bathrooms that have like one stall. Like,
yeah.
What you're having like 400 people to go to the show. How do you only have one shitter in this entire place for band and fans?
Even Mohawk Place has more than one urinal. I mean, you'll be touching each other
Yes,
because they're
that's
so
true.
close, but they even
That's
have
more than some
one.
venues.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
Those are my pet peeves of touring. I think that's it.
That's that's crazy. So you talked a little bit about the Four Chord Music Fest. You ran it?
Yeah. So the first time I ever went was 2018. Kill the Clock was asked to play, so we played the fest. Less Than Jake was the headliner, which is like
awesome.
Second favorite band of all time, under Blink. Super sick. A lot of friends played, and like I was always talking to the guys in Eternal Boy, like, what can I do to like work this with you? Like, this is basically what I want to do, like event production, and like managing massive scale music events. And I was kind of just like pushed off for a minute. I was like, yeah, I'll hit you up if we need you. And then 2019, no, I wasn't there in 2019. So 2020, the festival in 2020 happened, or it didn't. COVID, how many years is this? 21, 22, 23. Okay, I lied. COVID happened in 2020. So 2021 was the first time I got the opportunity to work for the festival.
Right.
So my title, I think that year, is festival manager. And so I didn't really know what that meant. I was super stoked to just be there, though. Basically was like the tour manager for the festival, handling advances for the bands, like getting everybody's information in here. But as far as like the day-to-day operations, like I didn't have a set schedule. It was like help everybody for anything that is needed. And that is sort of like what I've been doing right now. But so 2021 was the first year. I worked it last year too. It became 2 days last year for the first time. And it's just so much work, so much walking, like a music festival.
How big is this?
It's in a minor league baseball stadium.
Oh, that's
so
pretty cool.
It's 10,000 capacity. I don't know how many tickets were sold. Probably somewhere between like 6,000 and 8,000. So it's like pretty big. We're not talking like Warped Tour, but
Right.
I don't know. What's a big festival?
Riot Fest.
Riot Fest. We're not talking Riot Fest. 80, 100,000 people going to those things, but like it's manageable, and it's all basically like DIY. It's ran like a DIY level festival. It's not owned by Live Nation. Rishi,
Love that.
Rishi, the singer of Eternal Boy, is the guy that kind of like heads it and has been heading it. So 9 years going right now. Who's headlining this year? It's Yellow Card playing Ocean Avenue front to back
Love that.
on one day, and then other bands, Taking Back Sunday, Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness, a bunch of other people.
Are you doing it this year?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm doing it this year. And then day two, who's headlining? It's the Gaslight Anthem.
Awesome.
Pretty sick. Gaslight, Alkaline Trio with Adam Willard on drums.
that.
So sick. And the Interrupters. Just got some Buffalo friends on it. Elliot Maggs
Nice.
is playing.
Oh, yeah.
I got my guys in Spaced.
Very cool.
They're on it
Very
now
cool.
too. Yeah, it'll be a good time. Couple days. It's August 12th and 13th at Washington Wild Things Park, which is like 45 minutes south of Pittsburgh. So tickets still available. Come. That's the plug.
So yeah, nice. So what was there anybody that you were just like, you don't have to name names,
Okay.
but was there an instance where you were like, that guy's a fucking asshole, or like, you know what I mean? Or just like something ridiculous was just like,
Where do we get
Seriously?
started? Where do we get started here? Okay, so last year there was it was a bit of an ordeal. So I stayed in a camper on the festival grounds because the second day of the festival, Jimmy Eat World and All Time Low were loading in at like 5 a.m.
Okay.
So everyone had gone to sleep at like 2 a.m. the night before, but I was expecting like a semi truck to show up. So Jimmy Eat World shows up with their semi. I parked this guy on the stage, but the venue stadium manager or whatever his title was nowhere to be found. And I needed him to turn the lights on. And so it is like 5 or 6 a.m., pitch black. I'm getting screamed at by the teams of All Time Low and Jimmy Eat World that there is no lights on, there's no power. All of these people that were supposed to show up to have things start happening just like weren't there because everyone was passed out, exhausted,
from the night
whatever
before.
the case was. And I was freaking out. Like one of those bands were like, if the power's not on in 2 minutes, like we are packing up and leaving. So I'm now on the phone with everybody freaking out like, yo, this show is about to fall apart. Like I'm freaking out. And like I don't usually have panic attacks, but I was having a panic attack. I was like, this is super bad situation.
Rightfully so.
Super bad. And I'm like, this is just so not my fault. So get this. So all that happened. It turned out that the venue manager or whatever was like passed out sleeping in his office. He was on site. He wasn't like home or anything. He was 50 feet away from me, locked in his office with headphones and a blindfold on. So like unconscious. I mean, I think we broke in to wake him up.
Yeah.
Super stressful and crazy. But everything ended up being fine because by the time we got the lights on, the sun was coming up.
Right.
So all that and the bands chilled out and everything was fine. Who were the other big players last year? We had big punk shows like Pennywise, Lagwagon,
Awesome.
H2O, Descendants, Bad Religion. Like that was one.
That's sick.
It was so sick. But these tour managers are like so intense. The crew for Pennywise are like they've been around the block a few times and like pretty intense. Like everybody in that band is like, holy shit, like that's Pennywise.
Yeah.
Crazy. So nothing like crazy happened, and everyone was super nice. Like once the ball got rolling. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else? I'm trying to think. There's so much.
Real quick, you said you were expecting like semis and everything. Like, what were they bringing that they needed?
Just production. Like for like the headliners, like Jimmy Eat World was on tour, so they had one semi of like lights and a whole stage.
And
setup.
they used it all on that.
They used probably like 75% of their setup, which. It makes it tough. Like the year prior in 2021, it was like Rise Against headliner, and then the Used was below them, and then another band below the Used. But we had like a crazy issue with the amount of staging. All these bigger bands that have like decks and risers and lights and like a whole setup. You're taking up half the stage now. So we need you to slide all the way back, like as far like upstage as you can, and then. Other band, like the same thing of like a small show, right? You're stacking everybody's shit one in front of each other.
Right.
And I forget who it was. It was somebody from the Used on their crew moved a thing of Rise Against and they flipped out. They're like, if you ever touch, like, we're not playing anymore because you moved our thing. And I don't know if this is just a thing when you get to that level of like, things are that intense, but I'd just be like, oh, you needed to move that 5 inches? That's fine. Like, we'll move it back. That's why it's all spiked and whatever. I think people get freaked out and overhyped on little things when it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the mind, like, as an outsider looking in, like, is it the fact of, like, we're headlining, so we should have, like, it should be our thing, and then everybody should work around us?
I mean, I guess a little bit.
Entitlement?
Like, right, man. I was like, man, we got like 12 bands on the stage.
Yeah.
Like, can't we all just like work together? And like, we all know, like everyone knows what's got to happen.
Yeah.
But it's you get a little bit of push and pull from certain people. Like, I need it to be done this way. I need something done that way.
Yeah.
So
it makes you wonder too, like,
keeps you on your toes.
Are they just burnt out? You know what I mean? Like, are they just touring because they have to, or are they touring because they still love it?
Are they touring for money?
Yeah, like straight up. Because at a certain point, like when you get to that level, now it's just a business.
Yeah, 100%.
Like me and Ben were talking about. They Head North opened for Bowling for Soup.
Yep.
And he was like, none of them live in the same city. Really? They all fly out from different cities, meet at the gig, and then they tour.
It's so crazy.
And it's like, they're massive. They've been a band for 30 years at this point.
I wonder if they even practice. Like they might not need to. They might have to like run it once. Like
when you get to that at a certain level, you know, like I'm sure that like, you hear about these massive tours of like Justin Bieber or freaking Paramore or anybody like that. Like they rent out these warehouses and then they set everything up. They run everything. Like Corey Harris, he tours with a lot of these massive bands like Ariana Grande and Queen
A-list
and
people,
like huge like Kiss, Rush, all these massive bands. And he's brought up like that they'll do the first week of a tour with, I'm probably wrong, but like say Ariana Grande, just to say for somebody, they all get together and they rent out this big warehouse and they set everything up. They make sure everything's good to go. So that way, when they do leave for the tour and they're actually in the tour and they're making everything happen and they need everything to go as planned, they have it all set. They know exactly what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, who goes first, what needs to be loaded and set up and everything.
So many crew people at that level, which blows my mind. I mean, you think about like stadium tours like that, like the artist doesn't even know your crew, which is
right.
So that's the thing that like I've been bringing up with people sometimes. Like people are like, oh, like isn't that the goal? I'm like, sure, financially, but I would never want to be on a tour where like you don't know everybody. It loses like that sense of like family. Like yo, we're all like in this together. Like we're all doing like a job. But like you think Blink-182 knows like every single person? I don't know. Like they've got like 8 tour buses.
I can say from discussions with Corey that yes, a lot of those bands do. Like so cool. A lot of those massive bands, they have that crew. Yeah. And then when they take a break from that tour, that same crew's coming out because those guys know what it is. Yep. They know each other. They respect each other, all that shit. So when they do end up, you know, taking off or whatever, when they get back together, it's everybody knows their role. Yep. Everybody knows how everything goes together, and this is it. It's
definitely easier. Like I mean, at any level, like if you have a reoccurring crew, like okay, we know what's got to be done.
But then you think about it too, and you're like, oh, they have these huge crews, which like the guys that travel with them. But then you get to Buffalo, and then you have the local hands, you know, and those dudes are in a union, and they're hired guns to come in and just do shit, and then that's got to be even like just thinking about it. It's got to be even more stressful because you're like, oh my God, this guy he's a local hand, and like he may do this, but he doesn't do this with Neil Peart's drum set. Yeah, you know, like that kind of shit. Yeah. So
I mean, I work at Town Ballroom too, is like my main side hustle gig when I am home between tours, and like I was stagehanding for a couple years now, and like we hear that all the time. Like the bands come through, and like luckily, like our Town Ballroom crew gets like pretty high praise from like the groups that come through, but we hear their horror stories. It's usually bands are like, think about like on routing, like where bands are coming from. It's usually always like New York City or Toronto or Pittsburgh or something relatively close. But all bands ever do is just complain about like New York City union hands. Oh, you know, they can't cross. Like we are parked across the street. They're not allowed to cross the street in New York.
That's in their contract though.
Exactly. It's just crazy stuff.
It's a legal thing. Yeah. Remind me after to talk Town Ballroom because I worked there for 8 years.
Did you really? We just never worked at the same time.
You started probably right around the time I quit.
Yeah.
Like the entirety of the traditional, I was there.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I see.
But that was like 6 years ago. So like the last time I worked there was like 6 years ago. But remind me.
Crazy.
Remind me after, and we'll talk.
Powwow.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, so sick. I mean, like touring and stage hands. Like when you get to that point where you're like, I need 10 local hands on a show. That like it's just not where I'm at right now, and it stresses me out. Like you got all these people like touching your stuff that don't know what's got to go where. I'm like, sure, you can have them wrap XLR cables, right? But I mean, like I love it. Like I did the Incubus show at Canal Side, and it was like, okay, you have to wear gloves before touching. I can't think of their German's name. Before touching his like all golden DW kit, he needs you guys to go wash your hands and put on gloves before touching the hardware.
Right. Yeah.
Like, this is so crazy. I'm touching this guy's drums. Am I qualified to do this? I'm just a guy. Right. Yeah. Gnarly.
It's crazy. I don't know, man. There's just like trying to wrap my head around that too. You know, there's so much into it, and like I've done stuff here and there, but.
Do you ever have conversations like this with non-music people, or like try to explain anything like
this
to
somebody
that doesn't get it?
They don't understand.
I do this sometimes with my girlfriend's family, who like super not connected in this world, but they're like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "I don't know." So I give the gist, and it sounds insane. Like I'm like spewing this stuff out. Like what's your full rundown of a day like? But then I'm like, this is just me. I'm like, I can't even fathom what that next level is like. Just crazy.
That's why they make the big bucks too, you know. And honestly, you might get an opportunity.
You never know. I got a call yesterday to drive a bus for Post Malone's support.
That'd be sick.
Cow, dude. Just like.
And you didn't take it?
I didn't. I was already booked. I was like,
I
don't know.
love Pussy.
I'll take a tour managing gig over driving a bus. Anytime.
For sure.
If I had nothing going on,
Unless it was for Post Malone.
or for a lot of money.
True. I mean, money.
Everything is
cash
for
is
money.
king. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah. Cash is king.
Yeah. Had some crazy offers like that, but I've had to turn down because it's just not what I want to do. If you ever want to get into the music industry, drive the bus. There's always a need for bus drivers and bandwagon drivers. No one wants to do it.
No one wants it because it fucking sucks.
But it's pain. No, it fucking sucks, and no one wants to do it. Therefore, the rates are just going through the roof.
Yeah,
you
I
can
believe
ask
it.
for pretty much whatever you want at this point.
Yeah, Matt Watanic's on tour with a bunch of bands.
I
all
just
the time
hired
now.
Matt Watanik.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that
So
was you did his next tour. He's
I
doing.
did the last one. So I needed a driver for Point North. We were supporting a Treyu, and he was on tour with Knuckle Puck Real Friends, other band. Between You and Me.
Between You and Me.
Yes,
yeah.
Australian. And he was getting off the tour, and like I needed somebody like the very next day.
Yeah.
And so I flew him in. He was on our tour for 3 days, and then unfortunately our guitarist for Point North, his dad passed away. So the tour
bummer.
just got cut. And so I hung out with Matt for 3 days. I was like, I've known of you my entire life, and now we're hanging out.
Yeah.
And you're from Buffalo, but we've never known each other.
Now you do.
Now we do.
Now you have a connection that most people don't have.
I will hire Matt for any tour I do for the rest of my life.
Love that. He's a good guy.
Good guy. I love the
Matt.
Buffalo hookup.
Good guy.
Yeah.
So I want to hear a little bit more. Just some. I know there's some stories there about Kill the Clock. You guys did the DIY thing. I did the DIY thing. It sucks. It's not always terrible, but
it's such a part of your life. It's like iconic, and like you'll never have that time back. You'll never do that ever again.
it's a different kind of grind
Yeah.
because you don't know if there's going to be a show.
Yeah.
Or you're playing a house party and you're like, what the fuck's going to happen at this house party?
Are there going to be people here?
Yeah,
Right.
and like the craziest shit happens on those. I feel like DIY is where like the gnarliest stuff happens.
Yeah.
Like, is there anything that comes to mind as far as like any crazy shit when you were driving? Any like shows you were at and you're just like, what the fuck is going on?
Okay.
Like,
The craziest like near death experience. I guess we'll start with that. We were on, when was this? This was January of 2019. We played a tour kickoff show, which we did every single time because I was like, we need to make money up front. So like we always did a tour kickoff show, never in the middle of a tour, never at the end.
right.
Did a tour kickoff show in Buffalo. The next day we played in middle of Nowheresville, West Virginia. I mean, like relatively close. It was like 4 hours away. We left that show. We were going. That was a Saturday, and we were going to Richmond, Virginia, on a Sunday. And of course, I'm driving. I'm driving. I'm kind of tired. Like it's been a long 48 hours, and I'm cruising along, and then I start doing this, and everyone was still awake in the back. I was like, guys, do you feel the van
Moving?
like swaying? I feel like I'm on a snake right now. Like I'm not on drugs. I'm not fucked up. Do you guys feel this? Like I'm going like this, and like everyone got to the front of the van. We're like, yeah, we do feel that, but it was fine. I was like, maybe it's just the road. We're going through like hills of West Virginia, so I think it's just the road. But then we're going down a hill, and we start like going crazy. I was like, something's wrong. I pull over. The driver's side back tire had blown 3 of the 5 studs, and lug nuts were clean off.
Like sheared, cleared, clean off.
Sheared off. And so that's what that was. So, so back it up. The day before in Buffalo, or maybe it was that morning, before we left for West Virginia, I went to Dunn Tire to just get my tires rotated and like tighten the lugs. And, you know, they say you're supposed to like tighten your lugs after like 50 or 100 miles or whatever. I've never done that in my life. I now always do that in my life. So I will never go to Dunn Tire again because of this incident. But I basically realized that the lug nuts were not tight enough. And we were towing like a heavy trailer too, which I guess could have something to do with it. But we're going down a hill. Studs are gone. This is now 1 a.m. And I have AAA, which is great until you have a trailer. I don't know if you've ever had to call AAA with a trailer.
They won't touch the trailer.
They won't touch the trailer.
Yeah.
And so I'm on the phone with them. I was like, yo, here's the deal. Like, I got to get this van and trailer off the road. Like, what can you do for me? And they're like, oh, well, we can get the van, but you have to leave the trailer. I was like, lady, I don't give a shit about my 1999 Ford E150 that's blowing oil. I care about the $10,000+ worth of gear sitting in a trailer on the side of the West Virginia highway.
Yeah.
So AAA did nothing for me. I called like local Joe Schmo hillbilly shop in West Virginia, and the guy's like, I'll be right over there. and comes with the flatbed. At this point, I have sent. It's just me and John Vaughn on the side of the highway. I sent our other 3 guys to a hotel. We were in like Morgantown, West Virginia, West Virginia, Morgantown, West Virginia, and tow truck guy comes and he doesn't have. So we get the van up on the flatbed. But I'm like, so what are we going to do about this trailer? He's like, okay, so you know the thing where they can like tow a car behind a flatbed too? He's like, I'm going to drop one of the balls in that thing. But he didn't have the right size ball or something like that. So he couldn't do it. And then he tried to take the ball off of my hitch and put it in his thing, but it was so rusted on, it wouldn't break loose either. So we just carried the trailer onto the back of this tow truck and we wrapped it 50 times with chains. So like the trailer can't pivot anymore. It is just chained to the back of a tow truck.
Oh my God.
And we only had to go 5 minutes down the road to like a Goodyear, but this is now like 4 a.m. or something by the time we got going. We finally got to Goodyear. Tow truck guy drops John off at a hotel. I sleep in the van so that way when Goodyear opens at 8 a.m., I can like go in and get the whole tire thing figured out. I go in, it's fine. The guys are super cool. He's like, yeah, this is a problem, obviously. And then what did they say? They're like, okay, yeah, you can back it out of the shop. Have a good one. I paid for it, whatever. I back it out of the bay. There's no brakes anymore. I don't know what happened, if a brake line was accidentally cut. I don't know if this happened when I was going down the hill. The van has no fucking brakes. So I'm like pumping the brakes and I just roll back into a curb. I walk back into the shop. I was like, hey guys, we have a problem. They're like, what's up? Like they already have another car in the bay ready to go. I was like, I got no brakes and I kind of need that to drive. Yeah. And I need to be in Richmond in 7 hours. Brought it back in. And I don't know what happened, but I basically drove the rest of the tour with very minimal brakes. It was enough to stop, but I had to put my foot through the floor all the way.
Fuck that.
Still have no idea what happened. When the saga continues, I hate telling the story because it's so long. We got to Orlando, Florida, and I was like, you know what? I think I should go to another Goodyear and just check the lug nuts again, make sure everything's all good. I go to a different Goodyear. At this point, we dropped our trailer at the hotel we were staying at. I go to the shop, and they're like, who did this job? It was like a Goodyear in West Virginia. They're like, okay, well, that guy's got to get fired because when they put the new lugs and studs on, they like cross-threaded them. So the lug nuts that they had just changed were not seated correctly or whatever. And they had to cut them all off and do it again and file a claim through Goodyear. They're like, we're not charging you any of this because this is corporate Goodyear's
Rightfully
fault.
so.
Rightfully so. So it was super sick not having to pay. But I'm like, oh my God, dude, like we could literally die at any second. This is so fucked.
100%.
That was the near-death experience, but luckily no accidents or anything ever happened like that. Very first tour. First time I ever got pulled over with a band. I mean, if we're ripping through stories. I was touring with Rescue Dawn. Okay. So who is now Fernway. But it was like the last tour's Rescue Dawn. We were driving my van because theirs blew up. And we're in North Carolina. We're driving on the highway. A cop is merging onto the highway. I see him, so I get over, let the cop in. We do like a shifteroo. So now he's in the passing lane. I'm in the right lane. I had super long hair at this time. Looked like Jesus Christ. The cop looks at me. I give him like a little wave, and like he heads off. And I'm like, yo. At this point, everyone in the van is smoking weed. There's a bag of weed at the passenger seat right now. Everyone's high as balls. And we had like the bed down. It was a conversion van. So the back thing was a bed, and we didn't have the 2 middle seats in. So people were just sitting on the floor, kind of vibing. So we're getting off an exit coming up. And I'm like, wouldn't it be crazy if that cop was sitting at this exit waiting for us? Sure as shit, I'm driving. The cop is sitting there waiting. And like he's turning left, and I'm turning right. He could have turned left at any point. And he waited. Yeah. I turned right and I was like, yo, guys, I don't have a good feeling about this. I think everyone should sit up and like put the drugs away and see what happens. And sure shit, I turned the right. The guy does like a spin out of the left lane to go back behind us. Lights come on. I was like, fuck, we're getting pulled over. Everyone thinks I'm kidding. And they're like, yeah, right. So guys, we're literally getting pulled over right now. I need you to sit up and like open the windows like it smells like fucking weed in here.
Open the windows. That's the worst time.
I
Dude,
don't know.
that's a terrible idea.
I don't remember what. So I was the rest of this. So the back bench was down as a bed.
Right.
So I'm like, sit up and put the bench up. I think it's illegal to drive with the bed
I think
down.
it is too. Well, it's okay to have it down. You can't be on it. Like,
So
nobody can be on
we
it.
had 3 people on it.
Yeah,
So they all sat next to each other like shoulder to shoulder, so you couldn't see that the bed was down, because that was my initial fear. But I park, I'm going into the glove box to get my registration, and I turn around, and instead of everybody sitting up, they're hiding on the ground under blankets. Shout out everybody in Rescue Dawn, RJ, Tommy, Jonah, Tanner. I don't know.
That was so dumb.
That was dumb. I freaked out. I'm grabbing the glove box. I turn around. I was like, all right, you guys all go. I was like, what are you doing? Sit up. What do you mean? Oh, my God. So I freaked out. They all sat up real quick. And I was like, the guy is fucking walking to the car right now. And he looks like a fake cop. He's got the aviators. He's got the big Super Troopers hat. He's got the mustache. Like, this is like a Southern cop. He's going to say something stupid.
For sure.
Comes to the passenger window where the bag of weed is. Right there. I was like, fuck, we're going to jail. He was like, hey, are you guys a band? I was like, yeah, man. What gave it away? He's like, I saw this long-haired hippie driving a van, so I pulled you over. And I kind of look at everybody. I was like, I think that's illegal. That's like,
it is illegal.
You can't do that. But I'm like, fuck, I don't want to get into this.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, haha, I got long hair. I drive a van. Where are you guys coming from? The usual stuff. Everybody had their licenses out ready to go. I had the stuff ready to go. And then he asked the question like, oh, is there any like drugs or firearms in the vehicle? Oh, no, sir. And this is where the bit started. If you ever get pulled over, no, sir, we don't do that. We're a Christian rock band. We're all praise Jesus. I have a Jesus bobblehead that's been in my van since this period of time. I was
Hilarious.
like, yeah, Jesus is right there. Like, we're a Christian rock band, dude. We don't fuck with the devil's lettuce, man. And he was like to hear. He's like, you have your license and registration? I was like, yeah, we do. And saw that everybody had their stuff. He's like, okay, you guys drive safe now. But it was like, I got pulled over as a stereotype person with long hair driving a van.
Yeah, but you guys were doing naughty things.
Yeah, but he didn't need to know that. He didn't assume. He was like, oh yeah, I saw that you guys are smoking weed. He said, I saw a long-haired hippie driving a van. So, and from that point forward, anytime I've ever been pulled over with a band, we are a Christian rock band.
I mean, that's a smart move.
Yeah.
We were pulled over twice. Once on that full US.
Yeah.
It's because we had the brights on Head North's van, and because the regular lights didn't work. I just told that story last week.
You had to have them on. You got to have some sort of lights,
and
right?
he was like, oh, and then he was basically the sheriff. He walked up smoking a cigar, big fucking thing. It was like pitch black out, and he's like, brights are on. Like, just happened. We swear it happened before we even left for tour. Then he's like, oh, honestly, I just wanted to see what it looked like. Your license looked like. Because he was like shocked at how long they lasted before they expire, your license.
Right.
But then another time I was in New Jersey. Fuck New Jersey.
Fuck New Jersey.
I fucking hate New Jersey. My GPS said turn left. You can't turn left
to New Jersey.
Can't turn
handle.
left. Cannot.
You have to go
Cop
right to go
behind
left.
me.
You
Literally
turn left.
behind me. I turn left. And he pulls me over. He's like, well, you can't turn left. I'm like,
I'm
my
from
GPS.
New York, where we're allowed to fucking turn left.
Yeah, I was like, it smells like shit here, bro. Like, come on, I'm just trying to get out of here. I straight up did tell the guy. I was like, he's like, where are you heading? I'm like, anywhere but New Jersey.
Wow.
I fucking
Shots
hate New
fired
Jersey.
in New Jersey. Dude, what do you mean you got to pump my gas?
Just give me a fucking break.
Who came up with that? Why?
New
Safety?
Jerseyans. The worst. Dude.
Everyone else pumps their own gas anywhere. Who cares?
Yeah. Oh, and I have to tip you now for something that I want to do?
I absolutely will not tip. I've got friends from New Jersey, and I ask every time, like, are you supposed to tip? It's like, if you got a buck, just like give them a buck.
Yeah,
but like, absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So those were the only two reasons, or the only two times. And the first time I wasn't driving, Ryan was, and that time they wrote me a ticket, and then I just never paid it until like we weren't even in the band anymore. This was years later. I was driving through on vacation or something. I was like, shit. I was like, I'll fucking pay it real quick. I found it online and like paid it, but I was like, I'm never paying this because I'm never coming back here. I fucking hate this state, dude.
But just in case you come back, you should just pay it and get it over with.
Which I did, but
Crazy.
fucking.
I mean, I don't know how much time we got here. I'll do one more quick one. Second tour I did with Waster. We were in an RV at this point. The drummer of Broadside, Jeff, was filling in for us. It was fun. My first tour ever in an RV. The band was bitching at me the whole time. You're driving too fast. Like, I was like, yo, I'm just trying to get to the show in time. Like, if you're cruising 70 into 65 in the US, it's fine. But they were always being like, you're driving too fast. You got to slow down. Which is fine. Whatever. Jeff was driving at one point. I was up in the bed sleeping. He's like, yo, we're getting pulled over. We get pulled over. Cop comes to the window. He's like, yo, man, you're driving too slow. And he just gave us a warning. He's like, you got to speed it up. You're driving too slow in this vehicle.
Was he doing the speed limit or 5 under? Or?
I don't remember what it was. I was like sleeping the whole time. I was like, yeah, dude, just speed it up. But it was funny because I was like, ha, told you guys, you got to drive faster here. Sure shit. 30 minutes later, I'm back asleep. He's like, yo, we're getting pulled over again. We're like, yeah, right, man. Like, sure. He's like, cops walking up to the window right now. We get pulled over. Different cop, different area, 30 minutes away. Cop's like, bro, why are you driving so slow? You need to go faster.
Wow.
And he might have been driving slow in the left lane or something, like needed to move over, and that might have been the case.
In the passing lane or
but
something.
I had so much being like, told you guys.
Yeah. I fucking told you so.
Speed it up. I'm not the problem. I didn't get pulled over once.
That's funny, man.
It was a good time.
Yeah, man, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on.
Of course, I appreciate having me.
Everything you got going on, anything you want to promote, now's the time.
Okay, I think I already said it. New Eternal Boy record coming out sometime by the end of the year. Go to Four Chord Music Festival, August 12th and 13th, Washington Wild Things Park, PA. What else is going on? If you're going to the Youngblood tour, I'll see you. What do I got going after this? I'm going out with Point North supporting Escape the Fate.
Nice.
That will be fall, and then I got nothing after that. Hire me. I'm available.
Hire this man. Give
That's
him all
it.
your money.
Yeah.
All right, man. I appreciate you coming on. Again, this was a blast. StouryTime Pod across all platforms. Please remember to like and subscribe. Share with family members. Share with a friend. I do not care. Everything helps. I appreciate you all. We'll see you next time.
Bye, bitch.